Some people, they don't consider where they have to situate their home, and as a result they find a number of difficulties being surrounded the people that will forever lower down their standard in spiritual sense. And they will feel like they should move from that place, but it will be too late because they would have wasted a lot of resources in that place. Welcome to One Truth, and thank you for joining me today. And here we are building families for eternity. Are you new to the channel? Please consider to subscribe, give us a like, and shout out with a comment as we are going through this wonderful and interesting book, Adventist Home. And today we are on chapter 19. Where shall the home be? Let's dive into the subject. In choosing a home, God would have us consider first of all the moral and the religious influences that will surround us and our families. We should choose the society most favorable to our spiritual advancement and avail ourselves of every help within our reach, for Satan will oppose many hindrances to make our progress toward heaven as difficult as possible. We may be placed in trying positions, for many cannot have their surroundings what they hold, but we should not voluntarily expose ourselves to influences that are unfavorable to the formation of Christian home. When duty calls us to do this, we should be doubly watchful and prayerful, that through the grace of Christ we may stand uncorrupted. The gospel teaches us to estimate things at their true value and to give the most effort to the things of greatest worth, the things that will endure. This lesson is needed to those upon whom rests the responsibility of selecting a home. They should not allow themselves to be diverted from the highest aim. As the location for a home is sought, let this purpose direct the choice. Be not controlled by the desire for wealth, the dictates of fashion, or the customs of society. Consider what will tend most to simplicity, purity, health, and real worth. There was a time I was in a conversation with this man, and we were discussing about the best suitable place to put a home. And he says to me, there are a number of things that you first have to consider, which is to make sure that is there availability of water in that place. Secondly, you have to look at, are there any hospitals around? Perhaps the child gets sick, you have to take the child to the hospital. And also you have to look at the schools. Is there any nearby school that when the children are growing up, they will have to go to school? So these three things, I see them that they are of a vital importance. And perhaps you are a farmer. You have to consider that, is it a good place that I can do and practice my farming? There are also a number of things that you can have to consider. You can always share with me your thoughts on the comment section. What are the main things to be considered in placing a home? And most of the people, they tend to choose the places where there is full of wealth, but they don't consider their spirituality. If we have to look at the example of Lot, what kind of a place did he choose? We find that as they were having troubles with Abraham, Abraham says to him, choose the best place for yourself, and if you choose north, I will go south. If you choose east, I will go west. And when Lot was looking at this place, looking at Sodom and Gomorrah, looking at the life in the city, he chose that place. But now we look at that, this place was associated with the evil, and as close to that place, he was greatly influenced, and we know how it turned out. And even also his wife, he turned out into a pillar of salt because of the pleasures that she thought and remembered about back then, and she could not just live just like that. And also most of the people, they will lose heaven because of the places that they have chosen to settle. Instead of dwelling where only the works of men can be seen, where the sights and sounds frequently suggest the thoughts of evil, where turmoil and confusion bring weariness and disquietude, go where you can look upon the works of God. Find a rest of spirit in the beauty and the quietude and the peace of nature. Let the eye rest on the green fields, the groves, and the hills. Look up to the blue sky, unobscured by the city's dust and smoke, and breathe the invigorating air of heaven. If we have to consider the life in the cities, it's unbearable. If we have to look at that, there is land pollution, there is air pollution, the cars are forever moving, and if you have to look at the rubbish, it's forever thrown in different places. So people, they die and they find themselves with a lot of diseases which they have accumulated because of choosing the places to settle. And now if we have to look at the life in the countryside, there is good and enough and healthy air that we breathe in. And also if you have to look at the crime rate, it tends to be very low or even none at all. But in the cities, it is a different story. The first home, a model. The home of our first parents was to be a pattern for other homes, as their children should go forth to occupy the earth. That home, beautified by the hand of God Himself, was not a gorgeous palace. Men in their pride delight in magnificent and costly edifices, and glory in the works of their own hands. But God placed Adam in a garden. This was his dwelling. The blue heavens were its dome. The earth, with its delicate flowers and carpet of living green, was its floor. And the leafy branches of the godly trees were its canopy. Its walls were hung with the most magnificent adornings, the handiwork of the great master artist. In the surroundings of the holy pair was a lesson for all time, but in communion with God through His created works. If men would give less attention to the artificial and would cultivate greater simplicity, they would come far nearer to answering the purpose of God in their creation. Pride and ambition are never satisfied, but those who are truly wise will find substantial and elevating pleasure in the sources of enjoyment that God has placed within the reach of all. God's choice of an earthly home for His Son. Jesus came to this earth to accomplish the greatest work ever accomplished among men. He came as God's ambassador to show us how to live so as to secure life's best results. What were the conditions chosen by the infinite Father for His Son? A secluded home in the Galilean hills, a household sustained by honest, self-respecting labor, a life of simplicity, daily conflict with difficulty and hardship, self-sacrifice, economy, and patience, gladsome service, the hour of study at His mother's side with the open scroll of Scripture, the quiet of dawn or twilight in the green valley, the holy ministries of nature, the study of creation and providence, and the soul's communion with God. These were the conditions and opportunities of the early life of Jesus. Considering COVID-19 as it is hitting a number of people today, most of the cases, they arise in the cities. What about in the countryside? Are they also experiencing the hardships that are being experienced in the city? Rural homes in the promised land. In the promised land, the discipline began in the wilderness was continued under circumstances favorable to the formation of right habits. The people were not crowded together in cities, but each family yet its own landed possession, ensuring to all the health-giving blessings of a natural, unperverted life. Effect of environment on the character of John. John the Baptist, the forerunner of Christ, received his early training from his parents. The greater portion of his life was spent in the wilderness. It was John's choice to forego the enjoyments and luxuries of city life for the stern discipline of the wilderness. Here his surroundings were favorable to habits of simplicity and self-denial. Uninterrupted by the glamour of the world, he could here study the lessons of nature, of revelation, and of providence. From his childhood, his mission had been kept before him, and he accepted the holy trust. To him, the solitude of the desert was a welcome escape from the society in which suspicion, unbelief, and impurity had become well nigh all-pervading. He distrusted his own power to withstand temptation and shrank from constant contact with sin lest he should lose the sense of its exceeding sinfulness. Other wealth is laid in country homes. So with the great majority of the best and noblest men of all ages, read the history of Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, of Moses, David, and Elisha. Study the lives of men of later times who have most worthily filled positions of trust and responsibility. How many of these were raised in country homes? They knew little of luxury. They did not spend their youth in amusement. Many were forced to struggle with poverty and hardship. They early learned to work, and their active life in the open air gave vigor and elasticity of all their faculties. Forced to depend upon their own resources, they learned to combat difficulties and to surmount obstacles, and they gained courage and perseverance. They learned the lessons of self-reliance and self-control. Sheltered in a great degree from evil associations, they were satisfied with natural pleasures and wholesome companionships. They were simple in their tastes and temperate in their habits. They were governed by principle, and they grew up pure and strong and true. When called to their life work, they brought to it physical and mental power, buoyancy of spirit, ability to plan and execute, and steadfastness in resisting evil that made them a positive power for good in the world. The life in the cities is an unbearable one. Why? It is because it is associated with the evil and all the bad things. They start in the cities before they even venture into the countryside, and they don't even venture into the countryside. Please share with me your thoughts on the comment section. What are the most prerequisites to be considered in choosing the location of a home? I am so greatly privileged to be sharing with you, and also please show us some love and support by subscribing to the channel, giving us a like, and sharing the content with others so that they can also be blessed. I wish you all a wonderful time. God bless.